Hello, everybody. I'm Jennifer Wheeler with Birds Caribbean. Welcome to our Species Hour #1, where we hope to discuss very informally and hopefully very usefully the experiences people have been having or have had with monitoring these birds, the large tree nesters. Obviously, these birds, well, not obviously, but those of you familiar with these species know that they can be nesting. They're very flexible, can also nest on the ground or near to the ground. But today we'd like to focus on the experience of monitoring them when they are in trees or larger vegetation. Again, we want this to be informal. We want people to share their experiences, lessons learned, ask questions. Don't be shy. I think everybody is going to be nice, so no question is too stupid to ask. Please ask. We're going to keep, I'm not going to mute everyone, but if a lot of noise starts coming from your speakers or your microphone, we might ask you to mute. And other household keeping items, I don't think so. So,
well, yeah, one thing. We'll be mainly speaking in English, but if you feel your English is not good enough, you feel free to speak in Spanish or in French as well. We can translate or write in the chat in your language.
Thanks, Yvonne. Okay, well, next slide, please. So again, we hope that this Species Hour is going to be something that is a great opportunity for people to share, maybe get to know each other's voices, at least faces, if you're willing to come on video when the time comes. And so people can feel like they're part of a larger community, all working towards monitoring these birds. Did want to say we're going to have another webinar or meeting like today focused on the cavity nesters. We don't have the actual date selected, but we know it'll be next month, and we'll try to get that date announced just as soon as we can.
And likely toward the end of February, more so than the beginning.
Yes,
because February is actually next week, Jennifer.
Oh my.
I know.
Okay, next slide, please. And the reason for these meetings, for the Species Hours and for the webinars, we had 6 webinars over the last year or so focused on seabird monitoring. And the impetus for this webinar series and for these Seabird Hour meetings is to try to encourage as much seabird monitoring, surveying this year as possible. So we are calling it the Caribbean Seabird Census 2023, and 2023 is here. As Yvonne has reminded us, we're already about a month in. And so any seabird data collected this year, we would like to consider as part of the Caribbean Seabird Census. So please be a part of it. I think at the end, when we compile all the work people have done around the region, I think it's going to show a nice snapshot. It's obviously not going to be comprehensive, but it will be a good way to maybe look at what we know and then further consider what we don't know and fill in the holes. So next slide, please. And again, the aims, why are we doing this census? For a lot of reasons, primarily to again, work towards a regional picture or snapshot. And for that, we want to emphasize comparable data. And the gold standard for us would be apparently occupied nests, which is abbreviated AON. And there's ways to, if that can't be monitored, to estimate it. But if, again, you can actually get the information that is apparently occupied, then that's the data point that we're going to try to combine across the region. Another reason for encouraging a census this year is, well, any year, I guess, is to get more regional coverage. So again, we We want to see how many colonies and how many places we can have visited this summer, or actually this spring and summer. We want to update the knowledge we have. It's been a long time since there's been a snapshot for the region. And of course, if you have this information, it will help you identify important bird areas, support protected area endeavors, help address threats. And so our hope is that this helps the local practitioner as well. And then finally, supporting the growth, the capacity in the region of people that aren't knowledgeable and able to do seabird surveys. So this is a lot to try to push in 1 year, but it's the start of something we hope that will continue on. So next, I guess that's it as far as slides. Oh, okay, again, everybody wants to know, well, how can I participate? Our most recent webinar, we had a lot of example data sheets if you don't have your own. And ultimately, we're going to be sending out a data collection form to try to have people report their findings. So we will get that started as soon as we can. We know that some of these birds are being monitored even as we speak. And we want to, again, encourage people to ask questions, grow their knowledge. And these speaking hours are specifically focused on particular birds to kind of narrow down and really dig in on what people know and help other people learn. So that, I think, is the last of the introductory slides.
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks.
All right.
And we're going to let Yvonne, who has already advertised his ability to speak in 3 different languages, kick us off. Looking around, there's a lot of people we know, and there's a lot of people we want to get to know from the participants list. So Yvonne, maybe you just want to start out with a who's who question and
yep.
Find that out.
So if you arrived after the beginning, feel free to put your names in the chat and where you work. For example, Regis. And as I said earlier, if you prefer to speak in French or Spanish, please do so. And there are enough of us here who can translate. So don't be shy. If there are no questions to start, I will go ahead and I would like to introduce the people who are already doing monitoring tree nesting species, the big species like pelicans, boobies, frigatebirds, cormorants. So if you do already work on them, can you raise your hand? That would be at the bottom of the screen. There is a little smiley face that says reaction. And then you can click and rate, like, I don't know, put a thumb up or raise a hand. Just in case I don't know you yet. But
don't be shy.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you have experience.
Okay, great. Josmar, I know that you monitor tree nesting species. Okay, so I'll ask each of you who just raised their hand to tell us a bit more about which species you monitor and where. So Anne, your hand is still up, so can you go unmute and let us know?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I feel a bit of a sham because I haven't actually done work on my booby colony for a while because of COVID, but I was working at the Pedro Keys on masked boobies, basically doing a total count of masked booby active nests. The challenge we have is like how to like when you're actually counting, like making sure that you know which ones that you've actually counted. So we've tried various things, including flagging At one point, we marked nests with conch shells and numbered the conch shells. But basically, just going through the colony, marking nests and recording individually which ones we see. The colony isn't that huge, so it's just a few hundred, so that's doable in that location.
Yeah. Okay. So next up, Josmar, you monitor tree nesting species, I think. Josmar Márquez.
Hola.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Hi, Iván. Bien. Voy a hablar en español para no enredarnos con mi inglés básico. Sí, bueno, estamos llevando monitoreos en Los Roques desde el 2022 con el Censo de Aves Acuáticas del Caribe, con el CWBC. Y bueno, una de las preguntas que tenía acerca del censo de aves marinas es ¿qué fecha es la mejor? Porque creo que todos estamos pensando en lo mismo. Sabemos que hay diferentes periodos de reproducción, pero ¿qué mes es el mejor para todos? O no va a haber, o no va a importar qué mes se cense, Iván.
Ok. Sí, estoy escribiendo las preguntas y después vamos a contestar.
Okay.
Gracias. Okay. What Josmar just said, or was asking, he said he was working on Los Roques in Venezuela, working on boobies and other species, and was asking what is the best period to census those species. So we can discuss that later. I guess trying to count as many species at one during one visit. Sorry, I think I lost track. Oh, Tony Diamond, next.
Tony.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, I have to confess I'm no longer active in counting these birds. I wish I still was, but it was 50 years ago that I did most of it. Counting the Frigatebirds on Barbuda.
Thank you.
I did have a PhD student who was there a few years ago, 10 years ago, Sarah Treffery. And we got involved with the census method that was then being used by the EEG on Antigua, the Environment and Ecology Group.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'm very interested to find out how people are doing things now. And I just wish we'd had drones 50 years ago.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. So I had Tony, then I had Walter Espíndola.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Me and my team, we were working with red-footed boobies in the Caribbean, especially a colony that occurred in Mona Island in Puerto Rico. And our work, the main point was to compare different methods, how to achieve the population number of these seabirds in this island, especially the red-footed boobies. And we compare on-ground count detected birds method versus drone overflights in the colony. So we recently got accepted the paper. So it is for you to, to check it and see about our work.
Great. And then I think a bit later, we'll ask you to describe a bit the drone. We'll talk about drone a bit more later.
Sure.
Would you mind sharing the link to your paper in the chat?
Sure.
Thank you. And then I lost track of who was there. So, but there's Margot Mena. I don't know which language you speak, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Margot. I'm French, but I live in St. Martin and with EPIC, with Natalia. Hi, Natalia. We're conducting monitoring of the Caribbean brown pelican. It's a 6 months project, so we only have 6 months to do so. And we have our colleague, Kevin Sami from Nature Foundation, also monitoring the pelican. So we're also cross-checking data together.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm guessing that's Nature Foundation who is raising their hand.
Yes, that will be us. We are both working together. Me, Kevin Zakia Peterson, that's me, and Kevin. Was I loud enough? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Oh, it's Kevin, Sammy. Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah.
And was it just brown pelicans that was part of your project right now?
Yes, we're doing brown pelicans too.
Thank you. And then there is Régis Gomez from Guadeloupe. Régis, tu veux parler un peu en français et je traduis?
Oui, bonjour à tous. Ouais, bonjour Yvan. Donc moi, je suis ici ce soir parce que je suis maintenant en France. Hein, j'ai quitté la Guadeloupe il y a quelques années. Mais je faisais donc le suivi des colonies de pélicans en Guadeloupe. J'arrive encore à le faire assez régulièrement en allant en Guadeloupe chaque année. Voilà, qu'est-ce que je peux dire d'autre? Tu connais un peu nos travaux, Yvan. Donc on a essayé de suivre un peu mieux quelques colonies il y a quelques années, mais malheureusement, on a la plus grosse colonie qui a disparu, donc on ne fait plus trop de suivi très précis de la colonie. Donc on se contente maintenant de juste suivre les effectifs nicheurs.
Ok, merci. So Régis Gomez is from Guadeloupe. He worked with an NGO there, and they monitored brown pelicans in Guadeloupe. And that's what he still does. They have had an issue with the main colony disappearing, well, not disappearing, but abandoning following disturbances. So they're still working on trying to finding where those pelicans went. Merci, Régis. Any other person, sorry, whom I didn't call, but who monitor tree nesting species like pelicans or boobies or frigatebirds? Natalia. Okay, go ahead, Natalia.
Hi. Sorry, I'm outside. It's so bright. So we do citizen science work in the Grenadines. So it's not like hard research where you have like trained scientists going out, but it's pretty basic. So people are just counting what they find, and that includes boobies and frigatebirds. And also working with the folks in St. Martin who already spoke.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then of the other people who are present, could you raise your hand if you're planning on monitoring these species? Okay, I don't see any hands up. Anyway, that's fine. Oh, here's one. Deon Hewitt, where are you planning on doing it? Hello, Dylan? Okay, that's fine. All right, so since we have some people who know how to do this, and we were hoping some people from Puerto Rico, Adriana Tosas and Luis Ramos would join us, but I don't see them here because they have experience too with pelicans. And Rhiannon Austin, who is doing census on the Cayman Islands and Turks and Caicos, also couldn't make it, unfortunately, but that's fine. So one of the question for the people who don't know how to census species in shrubs and trees, I guess there are a few methods to use. You can just, you can go there and count them, but that's the issue of undercounting. And Anne brought up the methods of marking nests as you go, which is very useful if you can actually go into the colony and mark the nest you're counting. So I guess in the people who are here, I'm just looking around, I feel like most people are actually surveying nests from a distance, right? So we could talk about that instead, because what is going to happen, at least in colonies that are under cliffs, and that happens on a few species. Or if you're going to use a different method, like using drones. Okay, I'm still looking around. It's too bad on Zoom you cannot move people together. Anyway.
Delon,
so, yes?
He was able to say that his microphone was malfunctioning. I assume
okay.
he can talk now. I hope.
Can you talk now, Dylan? No,
it seemed to have a malfunction that may be continuing. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Sorry about that. All right, so in terms of recommendation of how to, I guess, behave and what methodology to use, Tony, would you mind, since you've been doing this for frigatebirds and the habitat for frigatebirds, even though it was a long time ago, the habitat has not changed much. Could you let us know how you use census for frigatebirds back in the days, and if you have any recommendations for that?
Well, on Barbuda, we were able to walk through the colony of very shallow, very low mangroves, and through most of it, and it may have changed following the last hurricane, because that colony gets rearranged every time there's a hurricane. But the main, there were 2 points I wanted to make. One was that some of the people were, if they found a bird on a nest, but they couldn't see what it was sitting on, they would lift the bird off the nest to see whether it was an egg or a chick. And I just want to caution against doing that, because as most people would know with frigatebirds, they're terrible nest thieves. And if a bird leaves its nest, if, for example, you pick it up and you see what it's got, but then it doesn't want to settle, it flies away. That nest is exposed to being robbed by males who are looking for material for their own nest, and they can fly down and tear it to pieces. So, and then that alarms other birds, and the thing can spread through the colony. So I would caution against doing that. And it may even be that going close enough to a nest to put a marker on it has that effect. That wasn't the case on Barbuda, but it could be in some other colonies.
Yeah, you found that in the colony you were censusing, you could actually walk through without causing disturbance, right?
Yes, the birds they're a tourist attraction, so they're very used to boats coming with lots of people in them and taking pictures of them and so on. So in my experience anyway, on 2 occasions, one sort of 10 years ago and one 50 years ago, the birds sat really, really tight, much tighter than anywhere else I've seen.
Okay.
Just the other point I wanted to make was that the breeding period of frigatebirds is very long. It can be protracted. Plus, the breeding seasons overlap. So, because it takes longer than a year to raise a frigatebird. When you go when there are eggs or young chicks, you will also have big chicks, fledged immatures that are still being fed by females. And I think you need a protocol for, really, those birds are from the previous breeding season. They're not from the current breeding attempt. And I don't know if you have a protocol for excluding those or not, but it might be worth thinking about.
Yeah, we do not have a protocol yet. I would say, though, the older chick that you would find, their parents are they raising a newer chick this year, or they're still raising the older one?
The successful breeding takes more than a year.
Yeah.
So if you have a flying young or a very, very big young, may not be on a nest anymore, the nest may have dissolved, and it's being fed by it will only be a female. It won't be males coming in. That's a sign that's the previous breeding season, and I would recommend against counting it.
I see what you mean. Yeah, if we do count only nests, then this one would not be counted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good points. And I see that you have your hand raised. I will just follow up on the disturbance and picking up birds. Hopefully, with the standard of counting, having apparently occupied nests as the unit we want to count. We don't need to check what is inside the nest because it's occupied and there is an adult sitting on it. Right. So hopefully that would prevent this kind of issue. Right. And you wanted to ask to speak?
Just to say that obviously there's a lot of variation between colonies and their exposure to people, because like we have magnificent frigatebirds at Pedro. And if you get even close to them, they're coming off the nest and then their eggs are falling out of the nest and other birds are coming in and stealing eggs. It's really something that in a colony that's not habituated to people, I really wouldn't advise anybody to try. And the problem we have is it's also really windy. So I'm not really sure whether a sort of small commercial type drone would really work very well to fly over. And they're all in dense vegetation. So I really haven't thought of a really effective way of counting the frigatebirds. Or being able to distinguish between the different age stages. So it's a big problem. Sometimes we just count the males that have pouches. So
that's a proxy for breeding.
Yeah.
And how close is close? 100 meters or?
That's a good question. Maybe like 20 meters. Yeah. So need to stay, a distance, a sufficient distance away that it makes it hard to see in a low-lying flat. I mean, the area is flat, so you don't have a vantage point that you can look down on the colony. So you're only really looking at the edges and you're quite far away. So I think a drone would be good if it's not too windy.
Yeah. Natalia, go ahead.
I also wanted to note that I think our data sheet has a column for immature birds, correct?
Yes.
Which maybe would help. I mean, I guess if you could identify that it was an immature from the previous year, I don't know how if they would have that it'd be included in the data sheet or it'd be considered the previous year's bird, and so you wouldn't write it down. Something for us to consider.
Yeah, that's where taking notes together with the data you're collecting is very important to make sure you're providing details on the data being collected, and then that can be understood later and counted. This being said, talking about data sheets entering data, it's true for any species, not just these species we're discussing now, but once you have a data sheet in the field or taking a notebook, you can create as many categories as you need, making sure you're actually describing what they are and you're not putting birds in different categories. So you could have a line about male frigatebirds, a line about female frigatebirds, a line about big chicks, and a line about smaller chicks if you needed to, if that would help you in the field to record data. So going back to, I guess, to disturbance, which is something we wanted to talk about with when we discussed a bit before with Jennifer. So yeah, disturbance depends, as Tony and Anne told us, it depends a lot on locations, whether the birds are used to humans or not. Sometimes birds who are not used to humans will not fly as quickly as some were. It depends on too many factors. But I guess what we can recommend is if you cannot see from a vantage point or use a drone, it will really depend on, you will have to go there as slowly as possible and assess disturbance as you come in. So maybe try to get a broad count. If you're going, say, with the boat or by foot towards the colony, try to get a count from a longer distance, and then as you come closer, assess if the birds are getting scared of you or starting to look around and assessing if they can fly away. If it still looks safe, then you can get a bit closer and try to get a better count on that colony. But you should always remember that you need to try to minimize disturbance as much as possible. Because then, even if they all fly up, you could come back the next day, but as Tony was saying, they could be either predation or adults taking the nest material from the nest. And so that would influence numbers the following day if you're coming back. Do we need to translate a bit into Spanish, Osmar? You good with here? Okay. Régis, il faut traduire un peu les discussions, ou en français, il faut traduire un peu, ou ça va à peu près?
Ouais, perdez pas trop de temps. Moi, j'arrive à me concentrer un petit peu pour comprendre un peu le fond. Mais c'est vrai qu'à cette heure-là, moi, c'est un peu difficile. Et puis, j'ai passé toute la journée en visio déjà.
Oui,
donc,
voilà.
c'est fort possible que je ne reste pas avec toute la suite.
Ok, est-ce que tu veux nous parler un peu de comment vous faites les comptages à distance? On peut parler de ça tant que tu es là, et après, tu peux y aller.
Ouais, si tu veux, ben cette année, par exemple, en Guadeloupe, on a fait les comptages. Ben il y a certaines colonies qu'on arrive à faire de la côte, d'une rive à l'autre. Parce que, par exemple, sur les Saintes, c'est dans une baie, donc on arrive à compter la colonie d'en face, de la rive en face. Ça fait quelques centaines de mètres. Donc on fait un comptage classique à la longue vue.
Et vous arrivez à tout compter, pardon, à peu près?
À peu près, je dirais qu'on arrive à compter, parce que je le fais sous différents angles, parce que certains nids ne sont pas visibles du même point. Donc, je fais sur 3 points différents, avec des angles différents. Et je pense j'estime à peu près 90% de comptage des nids, quoi. Donc, j'ai une bonne estimation.
Ok, je vais traduire.
Oui.
So I was asking Régis in Guadeloupe how they count from a distance pelican colonies. So for some colonies which are, they can count from another, when there's a bay, you can count from one side of the bay toward the other. And what Régis does is that he does like 1 or 2 or 3 counts of the same colony, but from different vantage points. And that gives him a better perspective on what is going on in that colony. And he estimates that about being able to count about 90% of the nests being there. If I can just add one option, so usually you're not double counting, is to take a picture, and then on your phone you mark down the ones you're actually counting, and then you move around and you look for the same ones. That's very helpful. Ok, Régis, tu as d'autres choses à dire?
Ouais, je dirais que là, maintenant, comme j'y vais plus qu'une fois par an, donc je passe qu'une fois sur les colonies. Avant, j'y passais minimum 4 à 5 fois, puisque les naissances ne sont pas toutes à la même époque. Donc, du coup, cette année, je suis arrivé un petit peu tard. Il y avait déjà pas mal de jeunes volants, donc du coup, l'estimation est moins fiable du nombre de nids. Voilà. Sinon, sur les autres colonies, on le fait avec une approche en bateau obligatoirement, puisqu'on a un îlet qui se situe en mangrove. Donc là, on arrive à bien compter tous les nids, puisque la mangrove, elle est assez basse sur l'eau, donc on voit tous les nids. Et sinon, sur la 3e colonie qui est sur un îlet, c'est pareil, on fait comme à terre de bas, on fait depuis la côte.
Ok.
Et voilà, donc là, les comptages qu'on fera en novembre, là qui vient, je sais pas, on n'a pas encore vu avec Antoine comment on va faire, mais je pense qu'on fera qu'un passage sur les colonies, quoi.
Ok. Je vais traduire ça et après je vais te demander comment est-ce que vous choisissez la date si vous l'avez choisi.
Oui.
And so for other colonies which are on mangrove and more on like little islets, or I don't know what is, yeah, little keys. So they're able to use a boat and actually go around the colony and count each of the nests from a distance. And then the question I'm going to ask Régis now is about, because they're going to do one count, even though the pelican nesting season is long and there is a peak, but it can be, birds can be at different nesting stages. They're going to do one visit. So he'll tell us how they chose that date. Donc, comment vous avez choisi la date? Comment vous pensez choisir? Régis?
Ouais, d'habitude, nous, en Guadeloupe, les couples s'installent à partir de la mi-octobre sur les colonies. Donc, généralement, fin novembre, on a déjà pas mal de poussins qui sont nés, donc qui sont en duvet, donc ce qui permet de mieux voir les nids. Donc, généralement, voilà, quand on fait qu'un seul passage sur les colonies, on cible fin novembre, début décembre, pour être à peu près à moitié de la nidification sur l'ensemble des couples, ce qui permet d'avoir tous les stades. On évite les plus gros poussins volants et on a donc là en grande majorité donc les poussins en duvet et les derniers couples qui sont encore couverts.
Okay.
Par contre, on a un petit décalage entre avant sur la Guadeloupe et les Saintes, il y avait 15 jours de décalage. Donc, il faut qu'on règle ça cette année. Je pense qu'on va y aller plus tôt. Surtout que cette année, il y avait un décalage. Je ne sais pas si c'était le cas ailleurs dans la Caraïbe. A priori, cette année, il y avait 15 jours d'avance sur les colonies.
Ok, d'accord, merci. Je vais traduire ça. Okay, so I asked, so they're going to do one visit, even though the birds are nesting for longer than, well, the breeding season is protracted. So what Régis was saying is that they try to go when most of the chicks are in down. So so with pelicans and frigatebirds and boobies, the chicks are patricial, so they nest naked, and then they get their very small down feathers, and then they get bigger about a month or a month and a half, and that's where they have bigger down feathers, and they're white and really very visible, which is a much better time to count them. So what they do in Guadeloupe is the birds start nesting around mid-October, the first ones, but they will go around the end of November, so about a month and a half after the first ones. This way, there'll be bigger chicks, which have down feathers, already some flight feathers on the back, on the scapulars. But there will also be adults that are eggs that are just hatching and chicks that are before fledging. So that's a good time to have about all the stages of breeding for those species. And then one question that Régis was asking, and maybe people who are monitoring pelicans can answer. He noticed that there were pelicans this year were about 2 weeks ahead of schedule compared to previous years. Have you seen that in other places like Saint Martin?
If you're referring to the nesting season, yes, we noticed that in August they did start having their nesting season.
Earlier?
Yeah, earlier, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And about the same period, about 2 weeks as well, or did you notice?
2 weeks to a month, because we do monthly checkups. So we noticed that a change, that they were nest from August till September. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So since you're here, can you tell us more about Saint Martin and how do you monitor pelicans on Saint Martin?
So we have 4 locations where they are normally around, and we take GPS location points to navigate which location they're at. And we have 1 breeding colony, which is on that side at our Fort Amsterdam. So we have Excel sheets that we take counts when we see them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And do you have any specific methods, or you count them from a distance as well? Do you go into the colony?
Yes, we count them from a distance.
Okay. And are you able to estimate your the quality of the count? How many are you actually counting compared to how many are there?
On average for this from last year, sorry, we could say that we had like 66, like on average. But within like the months, you get a tally of maybe 50 something or around 20, sometimes even 15. It really depends on the day. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
If there are any question, feel free to ask them. You can raise your hand using the reaction at the bottom of the screen. I think it's called reaction in most languages. If not, then we just touched about the subject of correcting and knowing the quality of your count. Because as we count, it's very likely that we will not be able to see all the nests. So it's good to have a correction factor, or at least an estimation of the quality of this count, which is can be in our data sheet we were proposing. We have a high, which is I think I count all of them. Medium, which is there is some error, and then low, which is the count might not be as good as possible, or I was not able to see all the birds. It really depends on your estimate, but try to be as, I don't know, try to estimate the quality of your count. There's no shame in having low counts. We know it's difficult to do it. And this links us, I guess, to using drones and comparing drone counts and actual counts in the colony. So I know that Josmar and Walter, you both use drones. Josmar, do you want to tell us about it and how you
Yeah, I can share the screen about the video with the colony, the Redfoot Boobie. ¿Puedo compartir la pantalla?
Pienso que Jennifer needs to make you a co-host.
Okay, no problem.
Can you do it, Jennifer?
Sí, bueno, para ir hablando, creo que es más oportuno usar un dron, y creo que ahora es mucho más barato tener un dron para hacer censos. Hay muchos modelos pequeños que no suenan nada y que son perfectos para las aves, que es lo que hacemos nosotros en Venezuela. Porque, bueno, la estimación cuando tienes una colonia en un bosque de manglar gigante, no vas a poder entrar nunca porque tienes que llegar en bote. Y la única manera de contar es con dron, lo más efectivo.
Por eso tienen como un mínimo de aves, claro, con el dron de nidos.
Sí, no, con el dron creo que tienes mayor posibilidad de contar la mayor cantidad.
Sí.
Sí. Que con binoculares o con telescopios.
¿Puedes compartir ahora?
No.
Todavía no. Did you make Josmar a co-host, Jennifer?
It says he's a co-host.
Oh, yeah. No.
Okay.
Maybe, a ver cuál es. Screen.
Yeah, so I'll just translate what Josmar was saying. So Josmar was saying that in Venezuela, they use mostly drones because the access to the mangroves is too difficult and you need a boat to get to it, which they don't have.
So this is the big colony of the Sula. I don't know, is it the word? This is only Sula.
Yeah.
So, por poner un ejemplo, cuando cuentas en bote, solo tendrías la visual de lo que ves acá. Only this. But with the drone, I have the full colony.
And so can you tell us more about, I guess we had a drone webinar, so they probably, I wasn't there, but they probably discussed methodologies, but do you take still pictures or just a video?
Yeah, take pictures for 20 mirror, I don't remember now. Sí, 20 mirror o depende de la actividad de las bobas, porque hay conteos en donde a 20 metros están bien, no les molesta, pero hay partes de la colonia que son más sensibles y hay que volar a 30 metros de altura.
Claro.
Lo recomendable son 30 metros de altura, pero a veces nos permiten llegar a 20 sin moverse, sin ningún problema. Se pueden ver pichones. Además, las imágenes de los drones son en 4K, entonces no necesitas acercarte tanto a la colonia.
So they usually go at 30 meters above the colony because that's what better for the bird. And if the birds are not too scared, they can go down to 20 meters. But Josmar was saying that the quality of the picture allows you to actually zoom in in the photo instead of live with the drone.
Yeah. This is the sample for the picture, which this is the chick, and this is adult chick.
Yeah.
No sé cómo es en otras colonias en el Caribe, pero nuestra colonia de Sula Sula no comparte los manglares con otras aves marinas. No hay pelícanos, no hay fragatas, magnificens, es solo Sula Sula.
Mm-hmm. So there is only one species nesting. I guess the Sula Sula only nest together. They don't share their colonies with other species in that colony.
Yeah.
Thank you, Josmar.
No, thank you.
Walter, can you tell us a bit about your research?
Sure. Well, our work was in 2020 and 2021, and our goal was to estimate the population of Sula Sula in Mona Island. The thing is that information about this colony in numbers, it wasn't updated. The last count or estimation was in 1970s, something like that. But it is unknown a real method to estimate it. Compared to the Sula Sula colony that Josmar showed us, in Mona Island, the colony is, the birds are really clumped because the vegetation that they prefer to nest are also clumped. It is not green, the island. There are like vegetation islands in the island. So there are things that take into account to estimate the population of that seabird colony, like the imperfection detection, also the cluster spatial pattern on trees, and also the preferences for the tree species, the heterogeneous landscape and the tree distribution, and also their activity during the day and also the night, because we are quite sure that during most of the day, I mean, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., most of the like 30% or 40% of the birds are at sea, doing seabird things. So we try to compare and use different methods to estimate them. One of them was using distance sampling method by on-ground observations. We initially compared daylight observation and during the night. So we got that between 6 and 8 p.m. It is a really good time to conduct observations because all birds are returning to their nest. So it is a good time to conduct the observations. And then,
and sorry, and you mean with a drone or with?
No, that's with the distance sampling observation.
Okay.
Yes, and with the drone, we conduct the overflights during the day, especially at 8 a.m. And we program overflights. We cover like 16 hectares and collect like thousands of photos. And yeah, it was a really hard work because we have to check all the photos and try to, take these photos. And the one thing that we can take advantage of this technology is that the photo is geo-referenced. So it is easy to put in a QGIS software or ArcGIS software and make like a collage or put all the photos one next the other one. So it was really, in time and effort. Sorry, it was the drone overflights were effortless in a good way, and also you can overflight the 16 hectares in less than an hour, and you can get information like daily. And compared to the distance sampling observation, you only need just 2 people, one the pilot, the other one who carry the food and the water, and you can perform it in less than an hour. Compared to the typical observation on ground, to cover 16 hectares, you need a team, like more than 8 people to conduct a good observation on ground. So,
and so, sorry to cut you, but do you estimate that, so with the drone, you spend less time in the field, but more time on the computer?
Yes.
Do you estimate that it's still less time with the drone, counting, I don't know, hours per person?
Yeah, hours per person, yeah. Mm-hmm. It is something like advantage, disadvantage, but you can get access to, difficult landscapes. And as Josmar said, you can send the drone, and the drone take all the pictures, and then you get the information and start to, check all the photos.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you. And you were able to compare the the number of birds the nest counted with drones and with distance sampling, and you did find some differences, right?
Yes. Well,
can you just tell us briefly, because
sure. So basically, on ground observation, there are like 10% of birds that aren't count, you missed, but and with the drone you can count most of them. Yeah, and you can basically have similar. Well, we got similar results. We got the same, similar numbers in estimation, but we achieved that drones are more accurate.
For this type of species nesting in trees.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have other questions? Does anybody have any questions to Walter or Josmar? Do you have any question? Oh, you just joined in.
Did we answer Josmar's question about the best time?
Oh, I don't think we did.
Take a look. I mean, we talked about it with another species, I think, and trying to catch the downy chicks, or another location.
I would say there is not a best time.
Whenever you can get there, since it's so hard.
Yeah. I mean, that's always a problem with colonies that are not monitored, or where we don't have information, that we don't really know when to get there to. If you can only do one count, that's already good. But yeah, as so Regis was advising, if you have some idea when they're starting and when they're stopping, it's good to get. If you can only do one visit somewhere in the middle, so you can have nesters that are at different breeding stages during one colony, one visit. Sorry. The best is always to have different visits, of course, but that means it's more expensive and more complicated, more work. So unless somebody has a good answer for Josmar, I'm afraid I don't. No. And the problem that we cannot really say, well, I don't know, in the Cayman Islands, they nest from August to March. So you should go during that time. But then in Venezuela, they may nest from March to August. Yeah. It's so depending, the time at which the species are nesting depends a lot on location. Just between Saint Martin and Guadeloupe, there are different timings. So it's very hard to apply periods from one location to another, unfortunately. I guess in Trinidad, if they have information on Trinidad, I know that there was somebody from Trinidad that was registering, but it's not here. That would be the closest location, or on the Arubas and on the ABC. And sorry, Bonaire Curaçao, that could be also location to see if they have information on when these species are nesting there, if they have some. But that's not a very straightforward answer. I'm sorry. Rudy, did you have an answer?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
I would think that the Los Roques is an especially complicated situation because of the large number of different species of seabird nesting there. I mean, the numbers of tropic bird, for instance, are very small, but they have well, more or less discrete breeding season, which is quite different again from the shearwater, the frigatebirds, the various boobies, and of course the quite large number of terns nesting there. So in the ideal situation, you would have to go to Los Roques, let's say February, March, and then again May, June, especially, I would think. And then perhaps toward the end of summer or early autumn. That would be the ideal situation, but I can fully understand that logistically this is quite a problem.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The best time for the seabird in Los Roques is May.
That's for the terns, yes.
Yeah, for every seabird. Yeah, but for the 2 last years, we can go to BBC in January and February, and the gold breeding season.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but this year is the loss the colony in so many cases because the high rain season in December, and fue horrible porque vimos todos los nidos destrozados por la marea de Sula, Leucogaster. No, en January. This January. Enero. Yeah, enero.
Okay. Vale.
Because the rain season in December is so high in Venezuela.
La lluvia.
Sí, la lluvia fue muy grande.
Vale.
Fue muy grande en Venezuela.
Sí, sí.
Fue muy grande en Venezuela. En todo el mes de diciembre con las tormentas tropicales y que fueron muy largas. Todavía está lloviendo en Venezuela, que no es normal ahora.
Okay.
Y eso acabó con la época reproductiva que normalmente nos conseguíamos en enero y en febrero. Mayo, cuando volvamos a Los Roques.
Pero Josmar, ¿no piensas que los meses de febrero y marzo son especialmente interesantes para contar las aves marinas en Los Roques, no? Me parece que sí.
¿Cómo?
Me parece que los meses de...
Creo que el internet está fallando.
Ok. Ivan, can you hear me? Or
yeah,
Ivan?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. That's some technical problem here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Otra vez, Josmar.
Ok.
¿Me escuche?
Sí, lo escucho.
Ok. Dicho que a mí me parece que especialmente los meses de febrero y marzo son especialmente interesantes para contar las aves marinas anidando en Los Roques. Y después otra temporada muy interesante, por supuesto, por otras especies, es mayo, mayo. Estas 2 épocas
sí.
Quizás son los más interesantes del año. ¿Vale?
Sí, nosotros hemos visitado enero, febrero, mayo, agosto y noviembre en Los Roques. Y la mejor época es mayo para la mayoría de las aves marinas.
Vale. Noviembre es muy poco, ¿no?
Noviembre es bueno para las... No, sí hay bobas reproduciéndose. Creo que las zulas se reproducen todo el año. Todo el año. Todo el año. Hay picos altos en mayo, pero es todo el año que se están reproduciendo. Hay otras aves, gaviotas, seagulls, gulls, and tern, que sí es en mayo. Sí, es mayo,
junio.
Mayo y junio. Pero de resto, a nosotros, este año nos sorprendió que las colonias no estaban de bobas, de Sula en enero.
Por
Habían
alguna
dos
razón.
parejas reproduciendo. No,
Ajá.
la lluvia.
Ajá.
Vimos muchos nidos perdidos, huevos movidos, pichones muertos en
Vale, es un
las
desastre,
colonias.
entonces.
Sí, subió el nivel del mar, llovió demasiado, mucha lluvia y
Ok.
mató a toda la colonia.
Ok.
Fue muy impresionante ver esto en
Vale.
2 de los cayos.
Gracias, Osmar. Gracias.
And thank you, Ruth.
Okay, vale.
I'm going to switch back to English and just
Of course.
summarize very quickly. No, it's okay. I don't know if everybody understood or not. So I guess the summary could be that if you know that the species are at different peaks, usually there is a big peak when most of a population of one species nests, and then there is a smaller one or it's spread out. I guess it's better to go, if you know when they are, to go to the biggest peak, because then you will count the major part of the population, and then that's already something. We know it's not possible to, with the amount of funding that we have or that people have, it's not possible to survey throughout the whole year and get a very precise picture.
Yeah.
But already having the peak of the population, that's already something that's very valuable. And then what is important to note is your estimation of what percentage of the population that would represent more or less, or your estimate on that. And in this case, we still have a minimum number. We know that there were 900 boobies nesting in Los Roques in May. And then there may be more, but we already know that there are 900, so that's already something, I guess.
Sure.
The goal of this census, the 2023 Caribbean Seabird Census, is, yes, to get updated numbers, but also to try to see where can we get information and where should we need to focus work in the future. And so that's already very valuable, I guess. So maybe we will stop in 3 minutes at 15, quarter past the hour, unless there are major questions. Anybody that hasn't had a chance to talk, if you have a question, feel free to ask them. If you plan on studying pelicans or boobies or frigatebirds, cormorants, because there are a few cormorants, not one species, and a few numbers, small numbers. Feel free to ask. You can either speak or write it in the chat. If not, I will. Jennifer, do you mind sharing the link to groups.io? Thank you. In the chat, Jennifer is going to put the link to our listserv, which is an email list. So you can register and then you can get emails from our group. Feel free to ask questions also to the group. It's usually me sending information, but it would be very good if people were actually using it to discuss as well. One last thing I want to mention, and that Rosmar talking about dead chicks, maybe remember it, is that there is avian influenza, bird flu in the Caribbean. It's been observed and confirmed in Venezuela with more than 100 or 150 pelicans dead in November. There may be more now that were not reported yet. In Honduras, also pelicans, about 200 dead pelicans in Honduras. So avian influenza is present in the Caribbean basin. It may spread to other islands. So as you're going out, or as you're just during your day today and you see, or you're on the coast and seeing dead seabirds, it would be good to be aware that avian influenza is there. If you do see dead seabirds, do not touch them because it's contagious from bird to bird, and humans, it should not be, but it could be. Take a picture and try to report it to health, like health services, if there are any government health services or local NGOs. And if they're not, then send it to us, to the Seabird Working Group, and at least we can try to get a count of what is going on. So on this, thank you, Jennifer, for sending the link. It doesn't show up as a link, but I think you should be able to. Oh, that's the email. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. We also. I'll send the URL to the.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can find it somewhere there. I got it. So everybody who is interested and who is not on the email list yet, feel free to register there. We also have a Facebook group, Caribbean Seabird Working Group on Facebook. So with this, if there are no other questions, I will like to thank you all for being here. It was great to hear a bit more about the projects. Thank you, Walter, for describing your research. I encourage people to read the article. It's open access, so it's free to access, which is very good. And thank you, Rosmar, for sharing the pictures, the video. That's also good to know how the sites are. And Margot, good luck with the rest of the Brown Pelican project on St. Martin. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great evening, everyone.
All right. Have a great evening. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye, Yvonne. Thanks again.
No problem.
See you next time. Next time.
We'll stop the recording now.